Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. How you guys doing?
Doing good.
Excellent.
Doing real good. How are you, Kathy?
I'm doing okay. I was a little sick throughout the week, but I'm actually better now. And doing actually really good. I have next week off. Well, I don't have next week off. My son has it off. But for me, I have it off because I don't have to get up like stupid early, and I actually have him at school and home. Like, I'm actually driven him to school and I'm at home before most people are even rolling out of bed. So he starts school stupid early, but and it's funny because people will say, why doesn't he just go himself? And it's like, you don't want to know our transit system here in Edmonton, and also you can't park downtown, Dada's school, because that's like $300 a month or something insane, right? So it's but I'm just grateful for the fact that I get to sleep in till like big old 7 o'clock. Woohoo!
That's great.
It's exciting.
It's tough for me because I wake up usually early in the morning. I'm an early riser typically, and so between my job and paranormal investigations, it's just like, I'll be up all night and I'll come home, I'll try to go to bed, but it's like, oh no, the body's saying you got to get up now. So, so I was lucky this morning. I slept until about 10 o'clock or so, and that was good. I hadn't done that in a while.
That would be my whole day ruined. I'm telling you. Like, I would be like, I wouldn't even know what
getting out of bed.
I missed my entire day. If I slept until 10, I'd be like, I missed my whole day. I don't know what I'm going to do now. Like, that would be horrible. Anyway, how you doing, Lynda? You said you had a busy week. Everything's good though?
Oh yeah. I mean, you know what? It is what it is. Actually, I'm really excited because we finished the last of our Halloween, believe it or not, events this past week. And I had been going through a real slump when it came to like a creative slump.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Because I'm a painter as well as I'm a seamstress. And I'd been just going through a slump. And all of a sudden it's like, poof, it's back.
It's back. Yes.
Yay!
Yeah. It's back. Well, I want to, speaking of being back, we're bringing back Lynn.
Segue.
Yeah. And I'm so excited to have her on the show. She is a paranormal investigator. She's an author. She is a death doula. And we're actually going to be talking about that today. We're going to be talking about some of the things that she's experienced helping people pass over onto the other side. So let's bring her on. Hello, Lynn.
Hi, everybody. Hi. I'm jealous. You get to sleep in tomorrow morning, but I'm glad for you. That doesn't happen often at my house either. So I'm glad. Hi, everybody. Hi, Trevor. Hi, Lynda. Everybody's looking gorgeous. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
As with you.
Thank you. Oh gosh. Wow. How's the weather been there? Here it's been kind of heavy and drippy.
Where are you again, Lynn?
I'm in South Carolina.
Okay.
In the USA. On the far, yeah.
We're on a verge. We're on the verge of getting our snow, but we've actually had amazing weather so far. So I can't complain yet, but we know it's coming. We know.
There you go.
I'm not looking forward to that.
It's overcast today, so it's not too bad. So
Well, that's good to get stuff done outside. I grew up in Florida, so I didn't move to the Carolinas until I was 35 and saw snow for the first time. Well, of course, dummy me, I decided to get in a vehicle and go driving down the road and go over to the grocery store, not realizing what it's like to drive on ice. And I'm sliding sideways and, slowly, fortunately, I'm going sideways, and then the car turns and goes the other way sideways. And I bump into somebody. We gently bump like bumper cars. And I'm like, well, that wasn't too bad. It could have been a lot worse. But I decided the next time that it snowed that I'd stay home. So, and our snow is like a dusting in compared to yours. We couldn't handle snow as heavy as yours at all. I mean, the most that we have is they get the trucks out and they're salting the pavement. But anyway, you guys have real snow. We only have a few inches here. So
I actually went and bought myself a Jeep Grand Cherokee. This thing has like 20-inch wheels on it, freaking, like treads on it, like that deep. And we're ready. We're ready this year.
Good for you. Good for you.
We're ready too. Absolutely.
Yeah. Tonight's show, we had talked before about wanting to go, as there is a dark side to paranormal. There's also that beautiful light side to paranormal, which is the death and dying part, and which most of the times people are uncomfortable with talking about. And I wrote a book, which I wish the cover would show up better than what this does. It's Amazon printing, called The Colors of Heaven, Beginnings Never End. And I wrote the book to help take the stigma of death and dying away. I am an empath. I do have the gift of second sight. When people ask what the gift of second sight is it's looking without expectation. You're looking with your eyeballs without expectation. Meaning, like, for instance, if you see somebody every day and all of a sudden they get 4 inches cut off of their hair and they walk in and you're looking, you don't notice until they point it out. And that's because you expect them to be the same. So because people are not expecting to see a ghost, or they're not expecting to see elementals, or they're not expecting to see a deceased loved one because it might creep them out, this is what is considered looking with expectation. Naturally, everybody has the ability to see with their eyes through their eyeballs, with no expectation. And so that is what the gift of second sight is. And what it does is it enables me to see between the interdimensional veils. I've seen aliens. I've seen Bigfoot one time, got to smell him a couple of times. And I've seen people leave their bodies at the time of death, as well as when their loved ones start coming in for them at the time of death as well. So I've written this book to help take the stigma of death and dying away. Also, as in all of my books, in the back, there's always a self-help section. This one actually walks you through everything from funeral arrangements to making your will out for free without an attorney, how to do that legally, the difference between a healthcare power of attorney, and what that means, so that people have a better understanding that just because you give somebody the power of attorney doesn't mean that they can run off and sell your house out from underneath you. You have to be incapacitated for them to be able to step in. So otherwise it's just a piece of paper. But a lot of times people don't realize that, and they're reluctant to give like that healthcare power of attorney or whatever it is over to somebody. And a lot of times it is misused. And I know I will go into the angels, but I would like to mention this one thing about medical healthcare power of attorney. This is important for everybody to understand this. Being a medical professional for 40 years, going on 41 years, and doing most of that in end-of-life care. I also did care management through a large insurance company, so I was constantly dealing with these issues. And the thing about it is that a lot of times people, they don't realize that just because you are the healthcare power of attorney doesn't put you in a position where you have to sign anything. The thing about the hospitals is if you go into an emergency room, they don't care who signs. The mailman next to you can sign just as long as somebody does, but I don't care what they say. 99.9% of the time, the person signing is the person that gets stuck with the bill. Most of the time, even though they'll tell you, oh, that won't happen. But then the person passes and you find out the bill's coming in your name. Right. So I recommend to people Never, ever, ever, ever sign for someone else unless they're a child of yours under 18. I don't care if it's your husband, your wife. Let them sign for themselves. And also, don't ever let anyone sign for you. If you go in puking, have your spouse move the bucket and hand you the pen and hope for the best. If you go in and your arms are cut off and you can't sign, your verbalization for treatment is in front of 2 hospital employees is the same as a signature. So even in that case, your spouse or loved one isn't obligated to sign for you. And this is important because in my own family, as well as another, and a friend of mine who went through this, when my father passed away, he left my stepmother in a position where these bills started coming in, and she lived in Florida, and she's like, well, I can't afford to pay these. I mean, it was hundreds of thousands of dollars because he had been put on life support and he had all of this stuff done. So even with the deductible, it was insanely expensive. So she went to an attorney, and the attorney asked her, he said, did you sign for anything? And she said, no. She said, you didn't sign for any treatments to be done. You didn't sign for any approval for Tylenol being given. You didn't sign for anything. And she said, no, I didn't sign for anything. And he says, well, then this is what's going to happen. In 30 days, a bill's going to come to your husband from the hospital. 60 days, then 90 days, there's going to be one with a collection notice. And then they're going to turn you over to collection. They're going to turn your husband over to collections, but your husband's dead. So it's not that I'm telling you not to pay your bills, but use discernment when you do it, because if it's a hospital bill that you have not involved yourself with, it dies with the patient. Okay, it dies with the patient. And a lot of people make this mistake. I had a friend of mine whose husband was in the emergency room. He had kidney stones. I'm on the phone with her, and I hear this lady come from the admissions office with the papers. Oh, you need to sign these. Well, immediately my friend says, oh, well, I'm his power of attorney. I'll sign them for you. And I can hear her husband in the background talking to the nurse about his gown and what he needed to put on and do. And I said to her, I said, Janet, why are you signing those papers for your husband? And she said, well, because I'm his power of attorney. And I said, no, you're not. You are, as long as he is alert and oriented and able to speak for himself, which I can hear him in the background, it is illegal for that woman to hand you the papers versus handing them to him. And the lady had already left. I said, you need to go back to that lady and tell her that you made a mistake, that what she did handing you the papers are illegal, and that you're doing her a favor by allowing her to shred those papers, reprint the documents, and bring them to your husband to sign. I kid you not, he passed away in the hospital. He had an allergic reaction to the iodine. Unexpectedly, he went into full cardiac arrest and didn't come out of the hospital. And she was in the same boat of, well, here I am in a two income family. There were still children in the house. And she's like, how am I going to pay these bills? And she also went to an attorney. This was in North Carolina, and said to her attorney, and the attorney told her the same. He said, well, did you sign for anything? And she said, well, I did, but then my friend made me go back and undo it. And he said, well, your friend just saved you tens of thousands of dollars by doing that for you. And he told her basically the same thing. If it's all in your husband's name, then, it'll stop because he's dead. So you're not obligated to pay it. Even if you want to be nice and pay a little bit towards it, anything that you've got your name on, your name will kind of get merged in there. And then you're going to start getting the bills in your name instead of in the patient's name. So please, everybody, I'm not telling you not to pay your bills, but be aware of that. Don't leave your family with the possibility of having a huge debt if something happens to you. That's why you've got to sign for yourself and not allow them to sign for you. And also don't sign for somebody else unless it's a child. But anyway, that's one of the things in the back of that book. But in the nursing field, I've seen many people cross over. I have many stories that I can tell about the time of where they're transitioning when they start to see loved ones coming in. And I actually saw my own mother pass, and it was so beautiful that I'd love to share that with you if you'd like me to. Yeah, I'm gonna take a quick sip of tea. I don't know what it is whenever they have this heavy air around. I think there's chemicals in it because it always kind of messes with my nose, and I'm not allergy prone. Anyway, my mother had cancer. She actually had mesothelioma that had lodged in her abdomen instead of her lung, which is very rare to have happen, but that's what happened. So she decided not to go through treatments anymore because she had other medical issues that were overwhelming for her. So we had a year's time before when they stopped the chemo treatments until she finally passed. And we did her bucket list, and she ate lasagna every week at her favorite restaurant and enjoyed life. But the thing was, is as it got closer to time for her to go, she was in a hospice facility. And the thing about it is that a lot of times people know that they're going to be passing. And let me just back up. There are 3 kinds of death. There is near-death experience, there is sudden death, and there is a natural death, which most of us have, and that's the one that I'm kind of focusing on. But there are differences. There are differences in the way that they're handled when they cross over and everything. There's also incarnates and reincarnates, and those are also handled differently. But with my mother, she was in hospice the day before she passed away, and she was going around the facility in her wheelchair telling people goodbye. You know,
wow.
she said, I'm going home tomorrow. And she even told one lady whose dog had just been put down 3 days earlier that she would watch over the lady's dog for her until the lady could cross over and retrieve her dog. And, and the thing is too, is that a lot of times people, the soul will stay in the body until the last minute. Other times they leave early and let the body's just left there to finish. Sometimes they even leave as early as a day beforehand and just let it finish out. So in my mother's case, she decided to stay until the last minute. And I know this because even though she could no longer open her eyes and she could no longer verbalize words, whenever you would say something to her, she would wiggle her eyebrows up and down and move her mouth, and it was appropriate. People would come in and say, "Hi, Phyllis," and she'd in response, and then she would stop. So I knew that she was still there. And as my mom was laying at a slant, as they usually are, I'm going to kind of go forward a little bit. I was in a recliner on the other side of the bed. I was waiting for my brother to arrive from Florida. They didn't make it in time, but I kind of feel like I was meant to be there in order to engage and be able to see what I saw, in order to share it with people, to bring comfort to them when they lose their loved ones. Excuse me. And so I'm sitting on the opposite side of my mom's bed in a recliner, and I'm stroking. I'm sorry, did I?
Oh, you're back.
Internet must be a little bit wonky. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay, because I can't hear you.
We've
Can
got
you hear
me? Yep.
Yeah.
We can hear you.
Great, I can't hear you.
Maybe log out and then come back on. Oh, she can't hear that. Oh.
That's
Oh,
crazy.
yeah.
Her mom's name is Phyllis. That was my mom's name. Was Phyllis as well. So that was.
Oh, was it? Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of interesting.
Oh.
So.
That is interesting. I just want to remind everybody, we're also on Twitch. So if you are a Twitch person, make sure you follow us on there. Yeah, Twitch. Make sure you go to Twitch and follow us on there as well. And make sure that, subscribe to our channel here. We truly appreciate it. And she's back. So give me 1 second. Hey.
Woo, what happened? My internet's, ever since that storm Helene came through, the internet's been wonky for everybody. So I apologize. It might, my lights were flickering a little bit, and I'm like, I hope that the internet and the electricity doesn't.
Yeah.
So, but sometimes they flicker when my mom's around too, and I'm talking about her and she knows it. So as my mom is laying there, she's at a slant, and I noticed that there's this ectoplasmic wall of like, I'm sorry. this ectoplasmic wall that's building up on the side, which is like a misting. It is a portal for, for people when they're time to cross over, also for spirits to be able to come through. And it just, as I'm sitting there, I'm noticing that there is movement on the other side. And sometimes I see like a pant leg stick out, or I'll see like a shoulder stick out. And I'm kind of watching this movement. So I'm paying attention to my mom. I'm stroking her arm. I've given her a kiss, and I'm doing some oral care on her. And all of a sudden I look up and I notice towards the head of her bed that the misting is starting to efface, and it made like an arched area. And my grandmother came through, my mother's mother. We called her Grandma Girl. She comes through, and she looked the exact same as I remembered seeing her last, which they usually do show up in the way that you remember seeing them last, unless they were as a healthy person, I should add, not like if they've lost hundreds of pounds due to cancer and they're just skin and bones. You'll see them as you remember seeing them last. So my grandmother walks in. She had on her 80s curly perm, and she even presented in glasses. She had on the leisure suit that she had made for herself, and she walked over to the other side of the bed, and I'm looking at her. I'm like, "Hi, Grandma," she's at the other side of the bed with my mom, and she starts to stroke the inside of my mom's forearm. And she would lean forward and say something into my mother's ear. And my mother would respond with the eyebrow thing and the mouthing thing. And my grandmother would come away. And then she did this 2 more times. And again, it was appropriate that she was doing that. And people, yes, they do show up in clothes. Nobody wants to see Mom naked. I think that half of us transitioning would have trouble coming out of our bodies if our parents showed up nude at the bedside. So yes, they do. It's kind of gross. They do show up in clothes. I've only seen one naked ghost, and that book is in print right now, getting ready to come out ASAP. But it's the only one I've seen.
Hopefully it's not illustrated.
Well, actually, I think I sent.
Yeah, we have the picture of it. I don't know.
Oh no.
Well, he's got his Johnson covered. He's actually
okay.
Yeah, that's a whole nother show.
Yeah,
it's another show. But anyway, so as I'm watching my grandmother do this with my mom is responding. And the thing about it is that during this time of transition, medically we call it rallying. Their filters start to efface, so they're able to hear the telepathy coming through from the spirit realm, and they can also hear the speech of the physical realm of the people that are standing in the room. And this is really an amazing time that people miss out on in their grief and their sadness, because when they're in that state of transition, if they're still able to talk, you can ask questions about, like, where did Uncle Bob leave the clock? Uncle Bob died 5 years ago, and you can get those answers through the person that's transitioning, because they can hear the response. And I think I had mentioned that about a blind lady on a previous show, about her hearing her husband mentioning that her son's shirt was yellow in the room, and she couldn't see it. So obviously he did. But so anyway, all of a sudden I see this frantic wave behind my grandmother's head in that archway. And I could smell my youngest sister's perfume just come in the room, and it just engulfed me. My youngest sister was murdered by a jealous boyfriend, a Baptist minister's son, in their house when she was 21, and it was her. And she was waving at me frantically, and she came out from around the misting of the crowd, like from the back, and she embraced me. I could feel her hair falling over my face. I could feel her essence and smell her. She wore a unique perfume called Latisse, and it just filled the room. And when my sister left me to go back around to stand with the rest of the reception, the whole wall had effaced. It was all completely gone. And I could see directly in there. And there were hundreds of people there, hundreds of people. Some of them I recognized from this lifetime, a cousin, a couple of other people that had passed. Mm-hmm. Of course, my grandmother, my grandfather that had passed, before my mother did. And there were a lot of people that I didn't recognize, but that my mother recognized when she crossed over. She knew who they were. But so I'm watching all of this, and I'm getting to look into the beauty of the other side. And there are colors there that you would need multiple color wheels to even describe. You can't describe them with the limitations that we have here. The light was perfect. It was like an afternoon sunny day and there's no light source. It seems like the light emits from with the atmosphere itself. And it's just perfect. And there was a little bit of a breeze, and there was this white table in the background underneath this beautiful tree with nothing on it. And I'll tell you about the food thing as we get in there, because I did ask about food on the other side, and I understood why there was nothing on there. So anyway, there was this beautiful reception, and I'm just sitting there, and the feeling of love and elation that came from that other side that I was able to engage with. There are no words to describe it. There's not a feeling that can touch it. It just is. And it still brings tears to my eyes, because I got to be engaged with all of that love that was coming at me of loved ones on the other side. And so I'm sitting there and I'm watching this, and all of a sudden, I reached over at one point and patted my mom, and I said, "Mom, Robin and Grandma are here, and it's time for you to go." And she did her eyebrow thing, mouth thing. I kissed her cheek and told her I'd be okay, that it was okay for her to go. And she literally took her last breath in about 10 minutes.
Oh.
And the thing was, as I'm sitting there, I'm watching up towards the head of my mother's bed, and it looked like they were several of the spirits had come together like a football huddle, and they were kind of layered on each other, thick like a peony flower. And then when they opened up, in the center stood my mother. And to me, it was kind of like they were stabilizing her spiritual feet. And, sometimes it's different for everybody. Sometimes they'll spiral up through the roof. Sometimes they'll walk out over a bridge. They all have their different ways of going, but my mother wanted to stay a little bit more present. So when I saw this happen, and again, the feeling of the love and elation, and watching her being so overjoyed as people one by one came up to greet her, and she was so happy. And I'm sitting there and I'm smiling from ear to ear. And when you are in the presence of that kind of energy, you can't help it. You can't help but smile. But and then again, I'm looking then over at my mom's bed, and she has died. She has stopped breathing. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, I better call the nurse in here, because if the nurse comes walking in, my mother's just passed away. I'm sitting here smiling. She's going to think I did something to her. You know what I mean? Because that's not a normal response. You know what I mean? So I called the nurse, and the nurse comes into the room and pronounces that my mom has passed. And I asked if I could stay in the room, because the festivities were still going on. They went on for a good 20 minutes, our time. And I say our time because we're linear and there is no time on the other side at all. And and in my book, I did say that I tried to put it into terms that people could understand, because they don't realize that there is timelessness. So I put 25 years as equivalent to one of their days, so that they'd have that idea of that expansive time that it would take, even though it is timeless, just to give them that idea of, like, for when on the other side, when we leave to come down here, it's like we've gone to the grocery store and then we're back. So because of their times being different, it's not this long drawn out, haven't seen us for 20 years, 30 years kind of thing. So anyway, the nurse said that I could stay there, and I'm watching all of the festivities that are going on the side, and the people coming and approaching my mom. And even in that moment, I wanted to jump into that scenario myself, but only for the party. And then I needed to leave to go pick up my kids from school. But you just can't help but be drawn in. That feeling of the elation that comes from there is like food that you missed, that you didn't know you missed, because you had been away from it for so long, if that even makes sense. But I'm sitting there, and I'm noticing as the room thins out, they're coming up, they're greeting her, and the room thins out. I notice that in addition to the angels, there are these very tall, very beautiful beings, white luminous hair, eyes that literally would change from a warm brown to a sapphire blue. They would interchange their eyes. It was almost like those cars that go by and they look pink, and then you pass them and they're blue. It was almost like whichever side you were sitting on, you would get the color of, and they were beautiful. But they were very, very tall, and their heads kind of even got cut off in the ceiling at some points, and they were very tall, like 12-foot ceilings. like 10 or 12 foot ceilings. So these things were very, very tall. And I'm looking at them, and they appeared to be from somewhere else. And I mean, if you think about it, and again, I don't know if they were male or female, it doesn't matter, because they were just gorgeous. Mm-hmm. And they exuded the same beautiful energy as the angels and all of the positive things on the other side. And they seemed to be an active part of the procession, for lack of a better word, of going through all of the things that needed to happen for my mom to finally, cross over. But the thing is, with as many stars as there are in the sky that are actually solar systems, suns to solar systems, maybe even planets like ours, it would be ignorant on our part to think that we are the only ones. So these souls appear to be from somewhere else. So when you've got the alien and galactic and you've got the human side, it all comes together there, because there are both. Everybody wins. There's both. There's not like cryptids and grays. They kind of go somewhere else. But these beautiful beings of higher dimensional frequency, they also have, when their lives finish, where in their solar systems, they have to have somewhere else that they, somewhere to go. So they also, go there too, where, like I said, where the higher dimensions are. And as the room had thinned out, my mom had started to walk past me, and the way that I see spirits is that I can see them as clear as day out of my peripheral vision. If they're close to me and in front of me, they look like a waffling to the air, like gas fumes or hot fumes coming off of a road. And I can see sometimes a lower half if that's farther away from me, kind of thing. And I can see them in, different ways. But I see my mom coming, and I recognized her because the upper part was this energetic waffling. But my mom had beautiful legs and feet. And I see her shapely legs in the patient gown still coming past me, and they were all kind of engaging with the top of my head, and it was tingly. But I saw her walk out and leave past me. And it was the most beautiful thing. And I getting to engage with my sister again with all of that time, and also afterwards getting to find out some truths about what really happened to her that way. I was able to connect in with some things with my mother. I had asked my mother a couple of things that were funny after my mom passed away, and remind me to tell you about the pact. Is that my mom at Thanksgiving, she used to make the turkey, and she passed away in July. So the turkey fell on me to make. Well, I had never made a turkey before. So I tried Googling it, and I wanted to make it fancy. I wanted one of those, trying to figure out what to do with it. So I get the turkey all fixed up according to Google and ready to go in the oven. And I hear my mom come through like a megaphone, and she says, "Don't forget the aluminum foil." And I'm like, "No, I'm not going to use the aluminum foil, because I want one of those nice brown turkeys like the ones on TV." And lo and behold, I found out that without the aluminum foil, my breast is burnt and my legs are raw. So we ended up having hamburgers. And I had to say, "Mom, thanks for reminding me of that." And she also had made mention too. I remember one time asking her, I said, "Mom, don't you ever miss the taste of potato salad?" She had a special recipe for potato salad. Everybody thinks their mom's potato salad is the best, but she had a special recipe for her potato salad and ribs and brownies that she made. And I'm like, "Don't you ever miss the taste of that?" And she came through like a megaphone, and she said, "Well, here we do everything by thought. If we want to be somewhere, we think of it and we're instantaneously there. And when it comes to food, because they do have all of their 5 senses on the other side, they actually gain 2 more. They have 7 senses. But she said, all that we have to do is think about it. And the flavor and sensation comes to us as if we're eating it." And I thought, well, golly, wouldn't that be great with ice cream? You can eat as much as you want and not have to worry about the calories. And sometimes people try to dispute the fact about the 5 senses with the smell. They don't smell like an olfactory nerve smells. They have memory recall. And really, if you sit here and just take a minute to think about the smell of popcorn popping, or chocolate chip cookies baking in the oven, or the smell of the sea when you're standing by the ocean, that smell, you can smell it. And if you want to imagine the flavor, you can almost taste it. And over there, it's on steroids. So if there is anywhere any food that you're missing that you want from the earthly plane or other planes that you've been on as well. All you have to do is think of it, and it comes to you. The sensation and the flavor comes to you as if you are eating it. So I thought that was really, really cool. But anyway, there are some other things too, if you want me to continue on.
Well, I'm curious if, so while you're there and this is all happening, are these spirits aware that you can see them?
You know, I don't know. I don't know if they are or not, but I mean, I called out my aunt by name. The thing is when they do find out that I can see them, then sometimes they follow me around, which is why I don't go on a lot of investigations anywhere, because I don't want them coming home with me, because I can see them. People are running around with their equipment and there's one following right behind. And I'm like, oops, you missed one, you know, type thing. I don't think that I think that they know that I do have gifts in that way, but you know, it's not like, it's not like they have any exceptional reaction, you know, to that type thing. So, you know, it's not like they come up to me to tell me something. I have the gift of seeing things. When I was little, I had the gift of both. However, when I went through a period of time with traditional religion where they totally battered my gifts, telling me that I was possessed, that they were demons that I was seeing, even if it was my great grandmother or something comforting. And I actually became afraid of my gifts. So I would run out of the room just as fast as anybody else. If there was somebody said there was a ghost in the room, it gave me the willies, and I'm like, ooh, you know, let me get out of here, just like everybody else does. But the thing is that with some of the other things that I went through in life, the ability came back, but it was more the ability to see. And I'm working on getting back my ability to hear. I can hear my mom talking. I can hear excerpts come through sometimes, you know, of different things, of people saying things. I was in a haunted house recently at the Gettysburg Bash, actually in Pennsylvania. And it was a whole haunted grounds where we roomed with a couple of other people to rent this house. And I could hear the family singing hymns, and I could hear the grandmother chuckling, you know, and talking to the children in the house. So I can hear those patches. But if I walk up to a ghost or a spirit and say, ask them a question, and if they respond, I can't hear that part of it. So, and I used to be able to do that. So I'm hoping to eventually get that back. As I'm with these new dimensional changes and us elevating up, I'm hoping to get that gift back as well. But I'll be happy to tell you about the pact if you'd like me to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I just wanted to mention one thing with my mom when she passed. It was during COVID, so we were only allowed so many people in the room at the time, and all of this other nonsense, and which made no sense. It was actually kind of amusing because it was in this one room that was at the far end of a hallway with no other rooms, there was no other rooms around, and there was the three of us were there. So there was myself, my daughter, and my sister. And they literally said, you can't go in together. And we were like, she's dying. Like literally this woman is pretty much dead. And we had to do the full PPE and I was like, this is absolute bullshit. Sorry, but this is nonsense. Like, this is absolute crap. Like, we're not infecting anybody and we're all clean. Like, it was so stupid. But anyway, getting past that, my sister went first and she spent some time with my mom. And after she left, my daughter and I went in, and we were probably in there for about 15 minutes when you could just feel that she was going to go. You could just, I knew that she was going to go. And all of a sudden, she just that last breath was taken. But all of a sudden I saw, because I'm a medium myself, and I saw her appear, and she was wearing this polka dot beautiful dress from one of her pictures, that we had. It was just one of her favorite dresses, and it was like basically she was young and just gorgeous, and and I saw her, and I didn't say anything at first. I just I let it be, but I saw her put her arms around my daughter, And I was just like, wow, okay. And I didn't want to say anything at that time because, you know, my daughter I knew was completely focused in on my mom and, you know, and just her own grief and stuff. And then a few minutes later, I said to her, I saw grandma, and she goes, she just bawled. And she's like, she was wearing the polka dot dress.
Oh,
And
so
I
she
was
saw her too. How wonderful is that?
She did. We both did. And it was just, you know, wow. Like it was that right there was just the most beautiful validation. I was so grateful that we got to see her as well. So, yeah.
That's wonderful. My daughter's just coming into the house. My dog's barking for a minute.
Yeah, no worries.
a lot of times too, you know, people can make pacts with their loved ones. My mother and I said to her, I said, you know, Mom, sometimes life is so stressful. And if you're around me, I may not be able to focus in or feel you. You know, I need something more physical to be left for me to know that you're there. So my mom had she had curly hair, but it being long, it was wavy, and they were pearlescent white. And I asked her, I said, would you leave me one of your hairs? Because they can leave hairs, they can move feathers, they can, you know, they can move things that are lightweight. And sometimes they can open doors and stuff like that too. So, but I'd asked her if she would. And when she passed away, when we were getting ready to go to her funeral, I drew a bath to soak in with bubbles. And when I came back in, there was a long hair laying lengthwise just laid in on the top of those bubbles that she bear with me. That she had left for me. And I mean, it was literally laying on the top of the bubbles. But, you know, then again, I'm like, well, you know, she was here. It might be a fluke hair off of my clothes or whatever. But there was one thing that happened, and I'm still finding her hairs today. Last year, I found one across the chair at Thanksgiving that was, you know, that was hers. And so we left that seat for her, because they do sit in seats for weddings. People, they're there for your weddings. They're there for the births of babies. All of the things that you say, oh, I wish Mom or Dad were here to see this. They're standing right next to you. They're probably sitting in one of the empty seats. They don't sit on top of people, but I can guarantee you that the empty seats are filled in every event. So, but I had gone back to school to further my nursing degree, and I had to go through a rotation through a psych class, which I had to go through a rotation through psychiatric wards to monitor people. And I had gone to the school bookstore to get a 3-ring binder and loose leaf papers to go in the binder for the next section in the class. I needed those. So I went to the school in a car that she had never been in. I was no longer living in the place that she had been in. I went in out of thousands of binders in multiple colors. I grabbed one. I like this color. You know, I grabbed one. I grabbed the loose leaf papers, and I go pay for them. And then I go straight from the bookstore to my car, straight from my car over to the school and to my desk. So this particular day we had a test, and it was a do or die kind of thing, because this class had 2 tests, and that was it. And you had to pass both of them with above an 80 in order to pass the class, because the grading scale was that high. 79 was the cutoff for B. And so I went in and I sat down, and I didn't feel prepared. I had a lot of other things going on. So I was really worried about this test, because the one test could get you kicked out of the nursing classes. So I'm sitting there, and I open this 3-ring binder, and in the middle of the 3-ring binder, in the teeth, looped in the teeth of the middle ring, was one of my mother's hairs. Now, I'm telling you, there is, and I swear on my children's lives, what I'm telling you is the truth. There is no way that hair could have gotten there, and it was hers. And even if it was a fluke, it brought me so much comfort in that moment to know that she had my back. Mm-hmm. And she was, you know, she was there to let me know that it was going to be okay. And I took it as that. But to find that hair looped, I mean, what are the chances? You know, I picked it, just randomly picked one, the color I liked. out of multiple colors, and there were so many. What are the chances that I would pick one with somebody else's hair in the teeth that would match my mom's hair? So I was relieved by that. And people don't realize that they can make pacts with their loved ones. Leave a ladybug. That would include if you're opening a magazine and you come across a picture of a ladybug, or you're standing in a store and you find a little applique patch of a ladybug. They're with you in those moments. You'll find a ladybug on your windowsill during the middle of the winter when it shouldn't be there. They are with you during those times to bring you comfort in a physical form, so that there's no question in your mind whether they are present or not. And even though people have passed away, because they still have their 5 senses, they actually have 7. They can hear you just as we're talking. They can hear us the same way. So you can still make that pact with them after they have passed away. You pick one thing, maybe that was something special between you, or maybe something that they collected, like elephants or little trinket boxes or something, or guns for that matter, depending on, maybe grandma was packing, but you can pick anything like that. And whenever you come across one, or you see one in passing, or like I said, you find one in a magazine, or you get a postcard in the mail, and it just so happens there's one in that picture, that that they are there with you in more of a physical way. And I hope, if people realize that they still can be connected with them, because we don't die. We do not die. We simply shed our bodies and continue on in a different form. And the thing is if people could look at it as, this is not the last time you're seeing your pets, you will see them again. This is not the last time you're seeing your loved one, you will see them all again. It's not death seems to have such a finality to it that people, they dread it, they become afraid of it, but it's not the end. It's not the end. So if they could try to shift and look at it in that way, that might be an easier way for people to, see death as more of a joyous thing. I mean, where my mother went to, where she is, I mean, who would, I can't imagine. I'm jealous. I couldn't imagine, grieving her to be here with me. I mean, this is the hell. They talk about heaven and hell. This is it. So, and here she is in this beautiful place, enjoying, my family, my entire family is gone, of my immediate family. My father, 2 sisters and brothers are all gone. So to have them with her, you know what I'm saying? How can I, be envious of that at all? But, the thing is too, is I had mentioned on one of your previous shows, that a lot of times people will start to see their loved ones coming in prior to death. And a lot of times the medical field confuses this as hallucinations. And I have, a couple of stories I've already shared on here about Edna, the blind lady, and Abigail, who saw the little girl was taking food to her room and it was bringing bugs. But there was another one that was interesting to me, because this woman actually had Alzheimer's. And she was on my ward. I had worked at this facility for 10 years, and I was like at the 7-year point at this time. And I remember Shirley when she would come in and volunteer. She was the one that would go down the hallway with the cart full of library books to leave off with people in their rooms. And she would come at Christmas time and leave ornaments on people's doors. And she had Alzheimer's that was progressive. And she finally got to a point where she wouldn't verbalize anymore. So she would sit in a wheelchair and she would tool up and down the hallway in her wheelchair and just look around. And for 3 years, she had not spoken one word at all, nothing at all. And I'm coming on duty and I'm in the nurse's station getting my charts pulled and looking at things to see if there are any new doctor's orders or anything that I need to do differently before going down to do my med pass. And you can tell this was years ago, because you have everything computerized now. And this was still when charts were paper charts and you had to handwrite in them. But anyway, I see Shirley tooling up the hallway, and she stops in front of the nurse's station. And I go back to get my charts. And all of a sudden I hear this woman yelling, "Take me home, please, please take me home." And I turn to come out, and I'm looking down the hallway to see who it is. Shirley's still sitting there. She's just sitting there. But I don't see anything down the hallway. So I assumed that a nurse or CNA or somebody had caught whoever it was and addressed whatever issue it was. And also that day in the hallway where Shirley was facing, on the first door on the left, there was a woman that was actively passing. I mean, she was within like 2 hours of her last breath. So I turned. I figured that the problem, whatever the issue was, it was addressed by someone else. And I walked back into the nurse's station to grab my things to hit the ground running with my cart. And all of a sudden I hear again, take me home, please, please take me home. And I turn, and it's Shirley.
Oh.
Shirley, who hasn't said a word in 3 years. She's the one yelling out, take me home, take me home. So I walked over to her and I started stroking her arm, and I said to her, I said, Shirley, who are you talking to? And she points down the hallway in the direction of the room where the lady was actively passing. And she says, see the angels? Aren't they beautiful?
Oh, wow.
And of course, I looked at first with expectation and didn't see anything. But then I looked again. I call it look. And I could see the loved ones of the woman that had come to help her transition over. And these angels, they were literally bulging out of the wall into the hallway in front of this woman's door. And Shirley was seeing that. She was seeing the angels. And Shirley herself also passed away about 3 months later. But they can see these loved ones coming in if they're close to their time. The sad part is that so many people, even if they're sitting in a room and the loved one mentions, oh, their Uncle Bob's sitting in the corner, they get creeped out. Even though they recognize the person, they get creeped out that there's a dead person in the room, and they run to the nurse's station to have the nurse come to give them meds to shut them up, because they don't, they're uncomfortable with, even if it's somebody that they recognize, they're still uncomfortable with that person sitting in the room, so to speak, with them. And they don't want to talk about that kind of thing. And it's sad that we've all been, we've all been conditioned to be that way, but some of us have outgrown it, so to speak. And anyway, I just, I thought that was interesting, that even with Alzheimer's, 3 years of Alzheimer's, and I was just amazed to hear her voice. And then after that, she never spoke again. So it was that one time, take me home, take me home. And she was able to answer my questions appropriately at that time, too, when I was telling her, asking her what was going on. But I've had lots and lots of things occur, lots of things that I've seen, heard lots of babies that I mentioned one, I think April, with the identical twins on another show. Did I mention?
No, I don't remember that.
Okay. I had a patient that was actively passing, and her niece was in the room. Her niece's name was April. So all of a sudden, my patient, she's coming into that rallying stage where all of a sudden they perk up and their toes perk up and they start talking. And she said to April, she said, April, when are you going to have those 2 baby girls? I want to see those 2 baby girls before I go home to Jesus. And I'm listening to this conversation because I'm in there giving the lady her meds, and April turns and she says, well, that's impossible. My husband, we've been trying for 25 years to have children. I'm in menopause. I don't, that's a nice thought, but it's impossible. I can't have children. And my patient insisted. She said, no. She said, you have one in each arm. You're holding one in each arm. They both, she said, blonde ringlets. She said, chocolate brown eyes and dimples, and they look just like you. And again, April came back and she said, well, that would be wonderful, but I'm too old now and it's just not going to happen. So my patient passed away. And about 6 months later, I saw April. She came onto the unit because it was either her father went through the unit because of a hip replacement or something, that he was there for respite care. And then her uncle came through and passed, or maybe it was the other way around. But 2 relatives that had come through the unit. So I got to see her a couple of times. And when she came in at that 6-month point, she had a baby bump. And I couldn't help myself. I had to walk over. I walk over and I'm like, what you got in there? And she says, I've got identical twin girls. She said, when my aunt was passing and mentioned them, I was very early pregnant and did not know it. She said I was maybe days pregnant and did not know it. And lo and behold, when those little girls were born, I got to see them right after they were born, about 6 months old. But the cutest part is I got to see them at about 18 months old. She brought them in, had them in hand to hand, and they're walking on each side of her. And they had these little blonde bobbity curls, just like the lady had said, brown eyes, which is rare with blonde hair to have the brown eyes, dimples, and they did just look just like the mom. And I thought, I got to hear about that. So they come back and they talk about things like babies not being born. I mean, I've had, actually, that's happened twice. Once with April, the second one, I had a lady that was almost 50. I would say, I know that she was like 53 when she had her baby. But the thing is she's standing in the room with her mother, and her mother says to her, I don't remember I'll call her Sue. I don't remember what her name was, and I can't use the real name anyway. She says, Sue, there's a little boy here calling me grandma. Okay. And Sue says, well, I'm an only child, and I'm not married, and I have never been married, and I don't have a boyfriend. So I don't know why you'd have a little boy in here calling you grandma. And she said, yes, he's about 7 years old. He's got brown hair, and he's calling me grandma. And again, she kind of blew it off. But lo and behold, her mom was transitioning. Sue went to the break room. She met a man whose wife had just passed away that was in the break room waiting for his children to arrive. They made friends. Lo and behold, they ended up getting married. And 6 months later, I ran into her when the child was about 4, because she lived in the area. I ran into her in a grocery store, and she was telling me the story. But the thing was, she had ended up going to the doctor thinking that she had mono, come to find out that she was pregnant. And the funny thing was she had mentioned, because she had a wonderful sense of humor, this lady. And she said, yeah, when I told my husband, he says, oh, well, there goes the boat. Because here they were in their retirement years, and his children were already grown, and she had a healthy baby boy, and he was as cute as a button, brown little hair, and he looked a lot like her too. So these were miraculous things to be able to be a part of, because I got to see the end result also, like the little bouncing blonde curls on the little girl. So the description was accurate. I mean, not only did they talk about the children coming in, they talked about what the children are going to look like when they come in, and they were accurate.
Wow.
So I thought that was, amazing too. So
I want to just show that picture, Lynda, that you sent. Because we're talking about, being able to see them passed over, and this is, wow. Hey,
Yeah.
That's a dog. Oh,
Yeah. You know what? The first picture, the long picture, that is a picture of my cat. On the day that he passed, he was my soul cat. And I had a dog growing up named Kippy. And when Max, my soul cat, was really ill, I kept saying, oh gosh, Kippy, if you're watching, I don't want Max to go alone. I don't want him to be alone when he gets there. So could you give me a sign that you're going to be?
Oh, wow.
And then, my daughter took this picture of Max, and in the fur, there was a picture of my Kippy. And that actually is a picture of Kippy as she's getting older. But when she got older, all of her hair was gray. And that was my sign. And it's,
wow.
I mean, that's
beautiful,
right?
That is beautiful. Yes, it is. Oh, those are amazing. I have another show to be on in about 10 minutes.
Yeah. Well, we want to thank you so much for being here with us. We truly appreciate it. And thank you for sharing all of your amazing experiences with us.
Anytime. It's my pleasure to be here.
Lynn, if people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way of doing that?
www.lynn, Lynn, Monet, Monet, like the painter. That's www.lynn, LYNN, My books are on Amazon. Some of them are just on my website, which I'm revamping at the moment. So please reach out to me that way if you need anything. So thank you so very much for having me again tonight. And I'll be happy to come back anytime you want.
Absolutely.
believe
We'd
me,
love to have you back again.
Yeah, I've got that new release coming out here any minute. It's in print now, so I'm really excited about that one coming out. I'll be happy to talk about it on your show. Anyway,
and
thank you
everybody for watching. Take care, Lynn, and thanks everybody. Have a great night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.